in the room. So everything else is gone. We're right here in this moment. So never underestimate the power of dreams and the influence of the human spirit. The potential for greatness lies within each of us. These aren't my words, I wish they were because they're pretty cool, but they're actually the words of Wilma Rudolph, this lady behind you. Wilma Rudolph won the Olympic Games twice, once in 1956, gold medal in 56 and 1960. And she overcame all odds. She was black in segregated America. She was female at a time where women were expected to stay in the work at home. And she went on to become known as the fastest woman in the world. She became a role model for both black and female athletes all over the world. So my goal here today, the reason that I'm here, is to help you to find the greatness within yourselves. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that what you guys do? As an agency, you help to find the greatness in the brands that you work with. And my question is, can we really do that to the best of our ability if we don't cultivate that greatness first and foremost within ourselves? In order to help others to find their greatness, we truly do need to find that greatness in ourselves, to be able to help each other, to be able to understand, to listen to each other. A really useful fact to remember is that there's 7.47 billion people in the world, and we all perceive it differently. So when you think about that just for a moment, perception is the lens through which we see the world. And if there's all these different people seeing it differently, it's really useful to remember when you're working as part of a team. And also, I think it's quite useful at family Christmases for me personally. In order for us to find this greatness, how are we going to do it? Well, I'm going to ask you here today, which you've already done, and I'm very grateful for that, is to step outside of your comfort zone. Because think about it, is it really possible to find our greatness staying within those confines of our comfort zone? So just think about that for a moment. So this workshop, this time we have together, I want it to be interactive. I want you to give as much as you receive, and that's really, really important. So thinking about comfort zones and how we can step out of them. The word Olympian, the adjective, it actually refers to both athletic Olympic winners, but also the 12 Olympic gods, the Greek gods who held council here on Mount Olympus, which is also the home of the original Olympic Games. So what I want to do today is I want to sort of break down some of the myths of these figures, both athletic and the Greek gods, like Zeus, for example. When you think about Zeus, Zeus was someone who gave the people an explanation. If there was a storm, it meant that Zeus was angry. If there was love, Aphrodite was shining her light on you. And if there was a party, Dionysus was there to celebrate. So these Greek gods, these mythical figures, really helped these people to shape the world they lived in. So what I want to do is three things here today. We're going to focus on finding the best in ourselves, that idea of greatness within ourselves. We're going to look at the idea of there is no such thing as failure. Just I want you to think about that for a moment, and I'll talk about it later. And the third key aspect of an Olympian mindset is the idea of resilience, of building resilience. And I'll talk about that as well. Not in the way you may think. Full potential. I'm sure you've probably asked or been asked at interview that question. What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? It's one of those kind of really, standard interview questions. Well, positive psychology is not interested in your weaknesses. A lot of the work I do is based on positive psychology. And it's the first time psychology ever studied the science of happiness. Rather than looking at fixing problems, what's wrong, anxiety, depression, etc., it's more interested in what's already good. How do we bring out the good that's already there? How do we help people go from sort of just survival to thriving? Because so many people are at a very baseline of survival rather than bringing themselves up to their full potential, to flourishing, to doing very well. There's so much research and science behind this, it's really exciting. The father of positive psychology is Martin Seligman. He's known as the father. I don't know if he actually really is, but that's his title. And he said that habits of thinking need not be forever. The most significant finding in the last 20 years of psychology is that individuals can choose how they think. So think about that for a moment. Choose how they think. And that is one of the key aspects here, is that there's a choice. That you have a choice of how you respond to any situation, whatever situation that may be. There's so many things that we can't control. So many external things. We can't control the noise right now outside the office, but we can control our response to that. Do we choose to focus on it, or do we choose to focus on this, which is so much more important, so much more interesting? So that's the idea, just a very sort of quick way of putting it into practice. I want to tell you a little story, and this is about a Native American chief. If anyone wants to come up for a name of them, I'd be very happy to hear him, but I don't know. His name is okay, he's a Native American chief, and he was out one day walking along a river with his grandson. And being this incredible chief of the village, he felt, you know what, I really need to impart some wisdom to my young grandson. So he looked at the river, and he saw that there was lots of different currents moving within the river. And he turned to his grandson and he said, you know what? He said, sometimes, son, he said, I feel like there are two wolves in my heart. And the grandson was amazed at this idea, there's wolves in his grandfather's heart. And the chief said, yeah, one that is very full of love, peacekeeping. It's a happy, content wolf that knows how to work together to help me lead this village. The other wolf, he said, is one that is angry. It's full of ego. It's full of problems. It's full of hate and anger. And the grandson was just amazed to think of these wolves. And he turned up and he looked at them and he said, but which one will win, grandfather? And he looked down at him and he said, the one that I feed. Okay, so we're back to the element of choice. The one that I choose to feed. Either wolf can flourish, but it's up to the chief. He decides. And what he was onto was something very interesting that he did not know. A huge amount of science behind this, which is neuroplasticity, that term. And I'm always intrigued to know how many people have actually heard of it. Could anyone raise their hands if they know what that word means? Yes, thank you. Okay, so that's good. You're not alone, by the way, and it's not a test, because most people don't know it. You know, there's lots of people who really have no idea what this is, and it's incredibly important. It needs to be, you know, taught in schools. It needs to be something that is out there, and it is the brain's capacity to rewire itself. So what the old chief was onto was actually the ability to change his brain physically. Just like we go to the gym and we want to get muscles, or we want to look our tight or whatever, that to shape our body. We can shape our mind, that it actually physically changes. And we know this from the onset of MRI scans. So we basically now know in the last 20 years more about the human brain since the beginning of mankind. So we're living in an era that is actually really, really unique to have that knowledge, to have that skill. And it's up to us then to what we do with that knowledge. So this old chief was really onto something. So what I want to do is, like I said earlier, I don't want to just talk, I want you to experience, because the brain remembers and recalls through experience much more than it does by just simply listening. So we're going to do another little exercise. You can stay sitting, but what I'd like you to do, and Sophie, if you don't mind, I'm just clicking on the, where is Sophie? Oh yeah, okay, it doesn't matter. Just to get, there's a little bit of music to help relax, but it doesn't matter, it's fine, we can do it as we are. So what I'm going to ask you to do is close your eyes again, okay? So now we're going back into that nice zone of relaxation. I want you to bring yourself through some really deep breaths. So you're sort of breathing, imagine you've got a balloon in your belly and you need to breathe into that balloon. You need to fill it up with air. And notice then, the slower you exhale, the more you're calming the nervous system and a sense of nice relaxation starts to come. So just calming through the whole body and mind, focusing on the breath. I want you to start to bring to mind somebody that you admire. Somebody that you look up to. Now this can be someone from very long ago, a teacher, a parent, a sibling, a friend. It doesn't matter, but find someone that you look up to, that you admire, that you think that this person has great qualities, great leadership. Whatever it may be about this person, visualize them to the best of your ability. See them. How do they walk? How do they talk? What expressions do they have? How do they carry themselves? See them. What kind of way do they hold their body? What energy do they have when they come into a room? is it that you admire about them? Find one thing. Let that word come to you, that one word that you admire in them. See it. Imagine you're lying back on a beautiful day like today. You've got some time to chill, and it's like you can see that word now just being spelled out in front of you. In clouds on the sky, just being puffed out, those letters that form that word. So this word now is getting really strong in your own mind. And as you look at that word and you think about it, start to imagine how this word relates to you. Do you yourself, perhaps, maybe, have some of that quality yourself? If it's confidence, if it's a sense of compassion, love, friendliness, joy, understanding. What is that word? And notice that the more you focus on it, you can perhaps just start to see that you too have some of this quality. Because what's incredible is the things that we admire most in others are often the things that we also have within our own selves. Things that we're maybe aware of or maybe not so much. So just let yourself see that word and now start to breathe it in for yourself. Breathe it into your own body and mind and start to scan yourself through times perhaps where you have displayed this characteristic, this adjective, whatever it may be. But you have also tapped into this wonderful energy. But you also have this within you. And I want you to just make a brain tattoo of that word. You're going to just really remember it. I'm going to come back to it. It's an important word for you. So brain tattoo it into your mind. A word that you can refer to. A word that you can use as a resource for positive energy when you need it most. And just breathing it in from the tips of your toes all the way to the top of your head. What does it feel like to literally absorb that emotion, that adjective, whatever it may be, confidence, calmness, a sense of laughter, love, lightness, whatever the word is, let it absorb into you. Taking another deep breath, remembering the focus that we're gathering here today. You're doing really well. And just opening your eyes. Okay, so we'll all have a word here, and that word's really important to each and every one of you. So brain tattoo it into your conscious and your subconscious mind. So just earlier I was talking about the Greek gods and how they basically provided certainty in an uncertain world. What I think is fascinating about the Greek gods is that they were actually constructions that the people made from their own imaginations and then projected forward to the skies. So these gods were in fact reflections, if you think, of themselves, of what they had within them. And that's a similar sort of idea, that exercise of the people that you admire most are reflected back to you when you look out towards them. Okay? So the second thing we're going to look at is this idea that there's no such thing as failure. Let's imagine we live in a world where failure doesn't exist. That there is no sense of you didn't get the job, so that is a failure. You failed the test, you didn't pass the test. It's not a failure. It's an opportunity to learn more. Somebody rejected you. It's an opportunity to accept yourself. So every single situation that comes along, you have an opportunity to turn it around. To look for the seeds of opportunity within what is perceived as failure. Now, the Olympic Games was actually founded by a Frenchman, ironically enough, not this one, I'll talk about him in a minute, but Pierre de Coubertin founded the Olympic Games, the modern Olympic Games. And he said that the Olympic Games is not about winning, but taking part. And life is not about conquering, but fighting well. So here's a man who believed that failure wasn't something that he was going to put his attention towards, that there was no such thing. Another man, I don't know if you know this guy, who's great, is Philippe Petit, another French man, who is famous as the wire walker. He walked across the two Empire State Buildings when they were there. Twin Towers. there you go. The Twin Towers when they were still there. So he was someone who was so determined to make that happen. And if anyone's seen the documentary, it shows what lengths he went to, that he was absolutely 100%, nothing was going to stop him, and he did it. He was arrested afterwards, but he did it. And that's what, is really a sense of his mindset being so determined. So this idea of only success, that everything in your life, if you look at it, because if you remember what I said earlier, the perception is how we view the world. So if we put on a lens that is one of positivity, that is one of success, then that's what we see. That's what we start to cultivate. That's what starts to happen. And I think that's something today in this agency is really, you can feel the energy. It's so positive. There's so much success. There's so much sense of new change, wonderful things happening. So it's a sense of looking at it through that lens. And when I talk about success, I'm not talking about, what kind of car you drive and what kind of house you live in. But really, if we get down to what success means, on a much more spiritual level, what is it? It's the ability to live at peace in the world. It's the ability to live in harmony. It's the ability to communicate. It's the ability to have compassion. And it's the ability to see above and beyond yourself for something that you're collectively working on. So it's the ability to not take things personally. That quite often things aren't personal. That sometimes we're just a little bit part in someone else's bad day. If somebody makes a comment, if somebody says something. The ability to step back from it. And to really cultivate success is that sense of harmony within ourselves. There is no greater success. There is no greater sense of belonging in the world as when you can get to that place. And you can, remember, neuroplasticity. So we're back to that idea. And this guy here, Michael Mirzovic, he's one of the most famous neuroscientists in the world. And he's done incredible things. He helped his father had a stroke to have another 15 years of happiness and health. He's helped deaf people, children to hear again by rewiring their brains in certain ways. He's helped children with learning difficulties to go on to get degrees. He's done incredible things. And he says that your brain, every brain, is a work in progress. It is plastic from the day we're born to the day we die. It continuously revises and remodels, improving, and this is the bit we need to pay attention to, or slowly declining as a function of how we use it. So how much control we have over there. It's amazing to think of how we use it has that impact on how well we do, how long we live, how well our brains operate, how much we can remember, what we can do to help ourselves. So a habit, I think, that can really help, and this is another practical thing, is the idea of looking at every situation. Some people call them problems, but if we change that perception and that lens and we call it a challenge, because let's face it, life is full of challenges. I'm not, up here saying that's not the case. Of course it is. Some much more serious than others. But let's say that we look at these situations as challenges. And within that challenge, we start to get into the habit, and it is a habit, of looking for 3 opportunities within that challenge. So you look at it. So it could be, for example, I can even share with you something recently from myself, where I basically in just under 3 weeks I'm going to be doing a TEDx talk. And this is something I was very excited about. I'm kind of obsessed with TED Talks, so I'm really excited to get this opportunity. When I found out about it, what happens is your brain starts to think, what will I say? What will I, and you have all these wonderful moments of inspiration. So for the last few months, I've been kind of letting these moments come in. I've been writing them down. And I was so proud of it. I thought it was the most amazing piece of work. On Wednesday, I went to a workshop to, a sort of a masterclass, if you like, to help prepare the speakers for the event. So confident, so delighted, couldn't wait. Here we go. I'm ready. Look at me. I have my thing. I've got it all down. I put a lot of work into this. And guess what? A challenge comes my way. And they say, it's great, you know what you're talking about, but I don't understand it. I've packed way too much in to a very short amount of time. I wanted to say everything. So now I've got to pull back and I've got to start pretty much again. But that's okay. So it's a sense of these things that come up in our lives, rather than taking it personally and saying, oh my God, this is terrible, I thought that line was so good, how can they? It's a case of being able to learn from that experience and say, that's actually a really good thing. So within that challenge, I get 3 opportunities. I get to do a better TED Talk. I get to learn how to take on other people's feedback. And I get to progress myself on a much deeper level. So every single thing that would appear at first as a challenge, and I'm sure you can think of one yourself in your own life, whether it's personal, whether it's work, it seems like something negative, but my God, what can come out of it when you change the way you look at it and remove yourself from taking it personally? I think that's one of the most really important things, is that it's not about you. It's not about yourself. It's about what you're focused on, what you're doing, and that's the message that you care about. That's what's important. And when you do that, you've got objectivity. You've got a space between you and the project, whatever it is, whatever you're creating. And that's your job, isn't it? So many of you are creating. So it's the ability to create from a space that isn't with you right in the middle of it, but an objectivity, the space between you and what you're working on. So, basically, what I'm talking about, again on the scientific level, is the growth mindset. And this is what Carol Dweck is an American psychologist. She coined this term. And basically, she studied so many thousands of school children and their attitude towards failure. And these children, quite a lot of them were in really sort of neglected, difficult backgrounds and adverse conditions. And the children that she found that were actually really thriving and doing very well were the ones that had a fundamental belief in their control of the situation, what they could do to make it better, rather than being a sort of victimhood of there's nothing I can do, this is awful, but a sense of autonomy or ownership over it. So the growth mindset is where we start to learn that we can cultivate whatever it is that we need to, that we're not stuck, that we're not in a place where we can't move from. I'm no good at that. I was told I was no good at tennis. No, I'm very good at tennis. But do you see what I'm saying? It's like if you hold that belief, it stays with you, it sticks with you, and you don't ever move from it. And that's the idea of a fixed mindset. We're stuck. You know that feeling of being in traffic, you can't move? That's what a fixed mindset does for you. It keeps you stuck. So just thinking always, how can I grow here? Rather than staying stuck. The third and final thing I'm going to look at with you today is resilience. And resilience is a word that kind of gets banded around a lot, doesn't it? It's like, oh, you've got to be resilient. And to me, quite often this resilience is associated with the hardness, sort of, you've got to be strong. But the way that I look at resilience is very different, and I'll talk about that. So basically, not so long ago, I was doing some training with an American psychologist called Rick Hansen. He's a great guy. He's, really got so much knowledge and wealth, fountain of information. And one day at the lunch break, I was having a chat, and I just wanted some advice. And he just said 2 words to me. That was it. I was like, I was expecting a lot more. But he said, keep going. 2 words. Okay, that's it. Keep going. But there's a lot in those 2 words. Because quite often, people stop. Why do most businesses go out of business? Because they actually think, oh God, I've had too many challenges, I'm just going to give up. But the fundamental thing that keeps things going is that in itself, the ability to keep going through the challenges. And if you think back to what I was saying before, about how you perceive those challenges, that is one of the main vehicles to help you to keep going. Another part of resilience I think is really important is, yes, we've got to focus on where we are step by step. It's that idea of making progress in the moment, moving forward. But it's also really, really good to keep the end in mind. And this is one of the Stephen Covey, I don't know if anyone's read that book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of them is the idea of visualizing the end in mind, keeping that end in mind, and seeing, for whatever it may be, whether it's this right now, the change happening in this office here today, very exciting. But thinking of, okay, it's a change, and we're programmed to resist change. There's a sense of fear around any change. But life is all about change. And when you're comfortable with change, when you have a flexible mind to change, that is actually an incredibly important part of survival, of thriving, of doing well. So thinking of that idea of keeping in mind the end, whatever it may be, it could be a personal goal, it could be something you want to achieve yourself, it could be a relationship, but just keeping that sense of where you're heading is a wonderful way of motivating you. So whatever those challenges are, keep it. Allow yourself to visualize them, allow yourself to see that happening for you. And then what happens is you, on a very subconscious level, start to find ways in your life to make that happen. You'll find yourself saying, oh, I'll do that, or yeah, that makes sense. And you're not even aware consciously why you're doing it, but it's because you've already programmed in a sense that this is what's going to happen. You're focusing on what you want, not what you don't want. And you'd be amazed how many people focus on what they don't want. I do this, I see this every day in my work. I'll say, so what do you want? And people say, I don't want to be stressed, I don't want to be anxious, I don't want to be eating chocolate, I don't want to be whatever it may be. I don't want. How simple is it to go, I want to be calm. I want to be healthy. And those words, calm, healthy, they go directly down to the subconscious as almost instructions. I am calm. I am healthy. As opposed to, I'm stressed and I don't want to be stressed. It doesn't hear, I don't want. It just focuses on that one word, stress, or whatever it may be. So the Dalai Lama, he's looking a bit blurred there, but never mind. He's had better days, the poor Dalai Lama. This is the part of resilience that I want to sort of bring back to what I was talking about success earlier, success being the sense of harmony, peace, etc. The Dalai Lama says that love and compassion are not luxuries, they are necessities. So if we go back to the exercise that we did earlier, it's a sense of sharing that sense of compassion, of wishing everyone around you what you wish for yourself. So the Dalai Lama is all about seeing that each and every one of us, the essence that we all have the same desire. We have the same desire to be happy, and we have the same desire to not suffer. So when you keep that in mind, it really transforms the way that you interact with everyone, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether it's the person who serves your coffee. It's the ability to see the human element of that person, always. It allows you to be kind, compassionate, caring, patient. Huge thing to be patient. So that's one of his things, and that's what I think resilience is about, the ability to be kind to ourselves. Because believe me, I hear it enough times, is that people say, I should do this, I should do that, I should have tried harder, I should have this. Should is a big warning sign. When I hear that word, I know that person needs help. Putting pressure on yourself to be resilient is the very thing that stops you being resilient. If you make a mistake, if you forget to do something, if you, whatever it may be, your response to that is how you then develop the resilience. By being kind to yourself, by saying, oh, okay, sure, it can happen to anyone. We all make mistakes. We all find things that we don't do or forget to do or whatever it may be. So the voice that we have towards that, when it's a voice of kindness, it's the very thing that allows us then the next time to not make that mistake. Think of it as a child who's trying their best, and every time they do it, you say, do you know what, that's just really, you shouldn't have done that, you shouldn't have done that. And you're focusing on the negative behavior. So the child then will continue to do that through stress, through a feeling of pressure. So it's turning resilience, the pressure that a lot of people put towards resilience, into compassion for yourself, first and foremost, and then to spread that compassion outwards. Because believe me, when you're nicer to yourself, you are so nice to everyone. Mm-hmm. Because there's no reason for you not to be. There's no sense of disharmony in yourself that you need to project outwards. So a sense of being kind and resilient. If we're not kind to ourselves, what happens is burnout. Now you guys, most of you are still young enough to not be at that place, which is great, but it's something you need to keep in mind. Because I see people a lot in their 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s who are burning out. And what they've done is they've neglected themselves. They've forgotten to take care of themselves in a very practical and also on a psychological level. So a sense of those shoulds, I should have done this, I should have done that, I need to do this, I need to do more, all of that leads to a place of burnout. And it doesn't mean that we stop achieving, it doesn't mean that we stop progressing. It's the very opposite. You progress more from that place of calm and that place of kindness. So, in terms of this, I think it's already old hat, maybe you guys will know better, but work-life balance was a sort of phrase that was bandied around a lot, you know, how do you get this work-life balance? What I think is much more important is to get a positive negative balance. Because let's face it, we all work all the time. We work so much, and thanks to the digital age, we are working so much more now than we ever have. You know, our work is always there it is in the palm of my hand. So it's a sense of how much positive nutrients, if you like, how many positive emotions am I getting from this work? What's the balance? We need 5 to 1 to be in a place of flourishing. This is the research from positive psychology. Some of you may know it already, but it's a sense that when we're doing really well, when we're flourishing, we have 5 positive emotions to every 1 negative. Because the negative is so strong, it's kind of like that really weighs it down. And this research actually came from studying couples, believe it or not, married couples. And the little interactions that they have, you know, the eyes up to heaven, yeah, you do, you know, all of that frustration, that is like toxic energy. So if you think about that in your own self, your individual level, how many positive emotions are you getting to every 1 negative? Most people who are doing okay are about 3 to 1. That's kind of normal. You're not flourishing, you're not, you know, really thriving. You're doing okay. So it's actually quite, you know, you think of it that way, it's really quite a lot that you need to be in that place that positive psychology refers to as flourishing. You're doing really well, you're doing fantastic. You're up at 5 to 1. So that's something that I'd like you to think of in yourselves. What balance? Where's your balance? And what can you do, going back to the element of choice, what can you do if the balance is more towards the negative? How can you start to bring it into a place that's much more positive? More positive for you, more positive for every single person that you come into contact with throughout the day. And also for the work that you do, the clients that you deal with, the ideas that you come up with, the creativity comes from a place of positivity. How many times do you feel creative if you're feeling a negative emotion? The negative emotion is all consuming. There is no space for coming up with something. There is no space for thinking about an idea in a different way because you're stuck. You're back into that fixed sort of place where you can't literally see clearly. An example of this is maybe, I don't know if you ever had a little, you know, argument with a boyfriend, girlfriend, mother, father, whatever it may be, and then you go into a meeting and all you're thinking about is that, you know, the energy that's going into that. Really hard to focus, really hard to concentrate. Or even just in work, a little kind of comment that's a bit negative can really ruminate, can stick in the mind, and it can block your full potential and your ability to really communicate and create. So guys, I'm going to finish with this, and we're going to just do one last exercise. And I don't know if you guys have heard of Amy Cuddy. Terry, you probably have, I don't know.
You haven't.
You haven't? Okay, well great.
It's not a failure, I'm going to learn about it. It's a community.
Yeah, exactly. So Amy Cuddy is an American psychologist as well, and she studies the science of our bodies and the impact that that has on our brains. So neuroplasticity can actually happen through how we carry these things, these bodies of ours, how we carry them, what we do with them, how we stand. She's famous for an incredible, actually really one of the best TED Talks is, don't compare mine to hers, okay? But it's okay, good talk. Basically, she did one and she's famous for saying don't fake it till you make it, but fake it till you become it. And there's a big difference. And what happens is that when we change the shape of our bodies, and everyone's already starting to sit up more, we actually change. No favor here. We then start to change the shape of our brains. So, what we're going to do, if you think about it, has anyone ever done like a 5, 10K or a marathon or any kind of running event? Yeah, okay. What do we do when we go through that finishing line? This. Right? It's the victory pose. So if you look here, you can see this is the victory pose. And this is something you guys can do every single day. You can do it before a pitch, a presentation. You do these victory poses?
Yeah, we do all sorts of things like that.
So let's all stand together, and we're going to go into our victory pose. You need to do the
My legs are totally dead. Like my right leg's totally dead.
I know.
One last focus. I promise it's the last time I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. So, with your eyes closed, I want you to feel your 2 feet firmly on the ground. You need to stay in this pose for 2 minutes. I'm not going to ask you right now to stay here for 2 minutes, but if you've got something coming up, the longer you stay in the pose, the more it has an actual impact. Just notice that. As your eyes are closed, really feel your 2 feet firmly on the ground. Spread your fingers out so there's a real sense of opening. So you're opening out. And as with your eyes closed, I want you to remember that one word. Whatever your one word was from earlier, bring it back now. It's being brain tattooed, so bring it back, see it and feel it in this pose. And notice how much more powerful it is in this pose. I am, whatever it may be. I am, I am, I am. Breathe in deeply. Hold it. And open your eyes. Thank you very much. Thank you. You're very welcome. Does anybody have any questions or anything about what I spoke about? Or?
I read that the Kieran Cartel, like, probably like entry level stuff. But anyway.
Oh no, he's pretty high. Yeah.
And you talking about how you have these two, you have a voice in your head, and how that's not actually you, you're like behind the voice almost, and how like if you become aware of the voice,
Yes.
that's you disassociating from the voice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you know how to do that?
Yeah, I do actually, and it takes a lot of training, and it's to do with what he's really referring to is going beyond and below your thoughts. So it's the ability to realize that you are not your thoughts.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? And that comes from a lot of practice in terms of calming the mind. The calmer the mind is, the more it doesn't identify with those thoughts, which are usually coming from the ego. So when we sort of enter into the thoughts, it's almost like it's too late. We've got caught up in the story, and one thought then quickly leads to another. And before we know it, there's a whole, book being written. So it's a sense of really self-awareness and knowing yourself very well. So when you feel a thought come up that is uncomfortable for you, or that you think, oh God, I don't like that thought, or should, or whatever it may be, is that you identify it and you smile at it. You show compassion and kindness, and then you let it drift by. So it is a training, and it's not, I'm not going to lie to you, it's not easy, but neither is the alternative.
I think mindfulness is a good technique for training your brain to be like
100%. Yeah, I do. I really do. I think that mindfulness is paramount to everything that I've spoken about. Because until we're present, we can't move forward. It's that ability to be here, to be now. And that's why I think it was great. I could feel that when we did that. The energy shifts and changes. And the focus is where it needs to be. So just think of when you're working, when you actually bring that level of focus to it, you can achieve so much more than being constantly distracted. And we live in a very, there's so many distractions, but it's up to us how we respond to them, and it's back to that sense of control. Yeah, I think mindfulness is really fundamental. Yeah.
Good, thank you so much.
You're really welcome. Thank you, and enjoy this evening, and congratulations to everyone.